to you by Penguin.
The Square and the Tower. Networks, Hierarchies, and the Struggle for Global Power. By Niall Ferguson. Read by John Sackville. If I broke my silence, the strength would depart from me. But while I held my peace, I held my foe in an invisible mesh. George MacDonald. Preface. The Networked Historian. We live in a networked world, or so we are constantly told. The word network, which was scarcely used before the late 19th century, is now overused as both a verb and a noun. To the ambitious young insider, it is always worth going to the next party, no matter how late it is, for the sake of networking. Sleep may be appealing, but the fear of missing out is appalling. To the disgruntled old outsider, on the other hand, the word network has a different connotation. The suspicion grows that the world is controlled by powerful and exclusive networks. The bankers, the establishment, the system, the Jews, the Freemasons, the Illuminati. Nearly all that is written in this vein is rubbish. Yet it seems unlikely that conspiracy theories would be so persistent if such networks did not exist at all. The problem with conspiracy theorists is that, as aggrieved outsiders, they invariably misunderstand and misrepresent the way that networks operate. In particular, they tend to assume that elite networks covertly and easily control formal power structures. My research, as well as my own experience, suggests that this is not the case. On the contrary, informal networks usually have a highly ambivalent relationship to established institutions, and sometimes even a hostile one. Professional historians, by contrast, have until very recently tended to ignore, or at least to downplay, the role of networks. Even today, the majority of academic historians tend to study the kinds of institution that create and preserve archives, as if those that do not leave an orderly paper trail simply do not count. Again, my research and my experience have taught me to beware the tyranny of the archives. Often the biggest changes in history are the achievements of thinly documented, informally organized groups of people. This book is about the uneven ebb and flow of history. It distinguishes the long epochs in which hierarchical structures dominated human life from the rarer but more dynamic eras when networks had the advantage, thanks in part to changes in technology. To put it simply, when hierarchy is the order of the day, you are only as powerful as your rung on the organizational ladder of a state, corporation, or similar vertically ordered institution. When networks gain an advantage, you can be as powerful as your position in one or more horizontally structured social groups. As we shall see, this dichotomy between hierarchy and network is an oversimplification. Nevertheless, some personal disclosures may illustrate its usefulness as a starting point. On the night in February 2016 when I wrote the first draft of this preface, I attended a book party. The host was the former mayor of New York. The author whose work we had gathered to celebrate was a Wall Street Journal columnist and former presidential speechwriter. I was there at the invitation of the editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News, whom I know because we attended the same Oxford College more than a quarter of a century ago. At the party, I greeted and briefly conversed with about 10 other people, among them the president of the Council on Foreign Relations, the chief executive officer of Alcoa Inc., one of America's largest industrial companies, the editor of the journal's comment pages, a presenter on Fox News, a member of New York's Colony Club and her husband, and a young speechwriter who introduced himself by saying he had read one of my books.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?